To focus in the next little while is on two domains. One is the cognition domain, and the other is on the individual variations domain. And whether or not you really lay out your course by domains, or whether you follow a kind of somewhat more almost canonical textbook progression, the AP Psych progression, is not irrelevant, but it's not that important for our coverage here. I thought I'd start though because I know in our classes we tend to do memory fairly early, some cognition stuff. So I thought we'd go in my head by that progression. So, a couple of things in memory. And I have several handouts. Most of them I'm not going to give you yet because it just clutter your desk. Two of them we'll probably give you so you can do some stuff. One is though, and I do want to kind of get a quick serious count because I'm going to make a command decision about what to do after it. How many of the teachers in the room here, the 25 teachers, do some demonstration of the serial position effect? Yeah, okay. Those of you who don't recognize that concept, well, could someone tell us quickly what is the serial position effect? How would you summarize it, Jill?
I believe that you will remember items on a list dependent on the position in the list. So the primacy effect is suggesting you're more likely to remember things at the beginning of the list. The recency effect suggests you're more likely to remember things you've heard most recently at the end of the list. So together you have a serial position effect.
And there's a demonstration that's been out in the world for 25 years. I first saw it from Doug Bernstein at Texas A&M. He was from the University of Illinois. And some of you may have seen that before. Over the years, we would do this demo. And then I would say, so do you think after we do the concepts, you can get about half a dozen great concepts from it, including constructive memory. So we're not going to replicate this now, but over the years I would ask the kids, so do you think now that we've done it, would having done it help? If you did it again in the future, would you do better? And typically they predict yes. But so I thought, well, I'm going to test that out. So at the end of the unit, and again, I know time is such a factor, I've written up another version of the same thing, for those of you who've seen this sort of mainstream one, to do again, and to see and to demonstrate to kids. Actually, a lot of this is about some of the limitations of memory. Practice helps with a couple of things, but not with others, it seems. I've not written a paper about this, and I don't have great stats on it, but I have a lot of anecdotal evidence that would suggest that. So I have a write-up. I was thinking of doing it, and I definitely would have done it if we couldn't get the PowerPoint up, but I have a write-up of our version of the serial position effect, plus the previous one, so if you don't know what we're talking about, you can do that. I think it's pretty understandable description, and it's a very good, some call it the all-purpose memory demonstration because you can get 6 or 7 concepts quickly from it, and it's kind of fun. All right. Another one like that, before we actually do one, is have you ever done some version of a recall a story demo, or everyone knows this telephone game, but what have you done, Kate?
Just recalling the story and kind of a telephone version of the storytelling things that belong to the story.
And if some of you have done a version of that, there's another one that's kind of part of the American teaching canon that's been out for a while. And people use it. And if you've done other workshops, you might have even seen people do it before. And you can get 4 or 5 concepts in memory from this, and the kids remember it just because it's fun. But that also bears, the same lesson bears repeating. Will you do better now in the future? So I've written another story that actually, it was kind of a laborious task, or maybe terrible, that has the same number, actually has not quite the same number of words, but the same rhythm, the same number of facts, so on. I tried to replicate it's a different story, obviously. I don't know how good a job I did on that. So it's possible, and again, to do a before and after. And one of the concepts that kids often predict they will do better on is avoiding gender schemas. So could someone tell, what are we thinking about there? And retelling a story, say about this canonical example is of a hijacking. There's a plane hijacking. How do gender schemas affect such memory, Pam?
Because the pilot is female, and attendant, the flight attendant is male.
But very often, as you can imagine, people will remember it according to their expectations. Many times, kids will say, well, I don't know, there are limitations to memory, and I don't think I could remember the details. The People's Revolutionary Army for the Liberation of the Oppressed is the name of the terrorist group. And everyone, as soon as you say it, people are like, okay, forget that. So there's lots of details like that are going to get leveled, basically, no matter what. But then they'll say, gender schemas, though, now I'm heads up, I'm sharp on this. I'll get this in the future. My story is about a car accident. A reckless teenage driver, no mention of gender. They always make it a male. A nurse, the reason the accident occurs is a nurse steps absent-mindedly into the street. They always remember the nurse is a female. There's no mention of her gender. The truck driver, I just ripped this off from the hijack one, is a woman. And they never remember that. Then I also have attached not just that version because it's interesting, and they don't do better on the gender schemas. They walk into them again, just as you and I do, in eyewitness testimony and so on. Then we also, another concept you can get out of this, so it isn't just fun, although it is fun, is recall versus recognition, because I wrote a recognition quiz. So you do the demo on the day, and again, it sounds like it's taking a lot of time, but it doesn't. You don't have to invest a lot of time. You do the demo, you learn, you get the 4 or 5 concepts. Next day at the beginning of class, give them a little 30-second multiple choice quiz. What was the name of the truck driver? And they can't recall it, can they recognize it? And it just reinforces the difference between recall and recognition and how they may be different tasks. They are different tasks. So I have both of those write-ups. But one other thing I thought we would do quickly is, I suspect some of you, well, let me ask again, how many of you do some version of an oral digit span test when you're teaching short-term memory? Yeah. Thank you. It looked like more than half of you again. And if you've ever taken an IQ test, mostly they have them, and you read 7, 9, 3, 4, 1, 6, 5, go. No rising inflection, no changes in inflection, and so on. They write them. We used to do that, and it was interesting. And you'd find ballpark, Miller's magic number. I don't know why it's magic, but the magic number for short-term memory capacity, 7 plus or minus 2, supposedly. But then I would just ask, so do you think how many of you think you do better visually? And a lot of kids, and we've already talked about the over-interpretations of and potential inaccuracies of learning styles, but still, quite understandably, some kids say, oh yeah, I do much better verbally. How about letters? Would you do better with letters, worse with letters, or no change? And they have mixed views. But then instead of just asking it, I thought I would do it. So let's do it. Quickly find a little spot to write in somewhere. And I am going to do a little visual digit span test with you, okay? And the screen, the picture, I'm not hardly a master at technology, but the number is going to be shown visually, instantaneously on the screen. Put your pen or pencil down. When I say go, this is the hard part, because kids are like, I'm keeping the pencil. When I say go, pick it up, write the number you just saw. Ready? Here we go. Pens and pencils down. Here we go. Ready? The number's going to be fairly high. They're all going to be in about the same spot on the screen. Here we go. Ready? Go. Ready? Go. Ready? Go. You're getting cocky now. Ready? Go. Oh, that was so fast. Oh, that's a glitch. I didn't do that intentionally. Okay, I'm going back. How about that one? That was easy. You did that one. Okay, here we go. Ready? Thank you. Yeah, I got my rhythm. I don't know what I did there. Ready? Now, that's a big glitch. And if you did it in class, kids would groan like you did, and then it would also be like, okay, rec demo. But now you could refer to rehearsal. You've had rehearsal. You had an exposure. Is there even an iconic? That wouldn't be there that long. Wouldn't be there that long. Iconic memory. But even though I butchered it, and I did just butcher it, you could still maybe get something out of it. Do you think you benefited from getting a quick flash before? You did? Yeah. You got the first three. Do you think you'll get if you've done the serial position effect, will you get a primacy effect with this? Because people read the number left to right. Of course, probably know, one tactic is not to read it, it's to see it, which is a different task. Because if you read it, you don't have time. And then you could talk about methodology too. Should it be a longer exposure? I've had it shorter. We had it shorter for a while, and then we lengthened it out. I forget what it is now, because we played with it. That's what I'm thinking. I can't remember. I think it's 3/4 of a second, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
If you did it longer, black on white would be an F.
Yes. And in fact, sometimes a kid will point that out, but if not, you can, because then you could at least float the idea of an iconic memory. In a sense, I'm not sure it's identical to an iconic memory, but it gets it conceptually that sometimes, I know for me, and it sounds like Aaron too, if you trust yourself to just look at it and close your eyes, you still got something there that you can then read sometimes. I think we have one more. I'm completely out of my rhythm now, sorry. There we go, let's try another one. That was terrible too. Okay, so this is a good example of how to do a demonstration badly. But let's check. So when I have the check screen, I chunk them to make it a little easier. I fell apart right around here, but would you agree? You all did fine, I'll bet, in the first three. Didn't you? Easy. Yeah. How'd you do on this one? Sorry about these. You know what's hilarious? Mike and I get this all the time. Did it have to be in order? Okay, now think about that question for a moment. Yeah, there are only so many digits you could write there. I had a 7 in there. Anyway, let's try letters, okay? I'll try not to screw up. Let's try letters. Except I screwed up! What am I? This is too sensitive. Here, let's try. Ready, go. That was an easy one anyway. Okay. Here's another letter one. See how you do. Go. Here's another letter one. Ready. Ready? One more. Ready? Any comments about this list so far? Any easier, harder? Carrie, you had thought? Easier? How many are pretty confident? And sometimes you can do this. Give yourself a confidence rating after each one. 1 to 7. 1 is, what class is this again? 7 is, I am a master of this task. And then see how they did. How many of you would say you were better at the letters than the numbers? How many are quite convinced you're better at the numbers than the letters? How many of you would say now, I'm better, I would have been better if we did it orally? No, you like the visual. Okay. Check yourself. Why? This is 7 letters. How many of you got this one? Did you? That's what I did it that way intentionally. It's not a word, but did you try to do that with others like, you know, or so on to try to? How'd you do? How many got all of those? Okay. So, Again, I have write-ups on those 3 memory things if you want to try them. Again, that was one of the worst versions of that I've ever done. And even then, you can still get the point. And it is a way to sort of test what we used to just ask about and ask the kids to kind of theorize about. Then, of course, in the canon of psych, often thought and language follows memory. And certainly memory, thought, and intelligence are clustered together under the cognition domain in the national standards. So we could talk later if anyone's interested about how many days we lay out for these things so you can do everything you want to do and give people a flavor of every domain and so on. But in thinking, which also overlaps, this particular demo I think overlaps with memory and therapy and research methodology. So I would like to do another quick task here on thinking, but again with overlaps elsewhere. But to do it, we like to do as many times as we can to do a demo with volunteers because they seem to think that's better. If we do this with the whole class, it's like, good, but activity. If you say, can I have volunteers to leave the room for the flaming arrow in the eye demonstration, there'll still be kids like, yeah, I'll do that, and they leave. Could I have 4 volunteers who are willing to leave the room? You're going to come back in one at a time and just do a very quick little task in front of the group. No harm will come to you. Thank you, Julie. Anyone else? Emily, you kind of very good. Beth, thank you. I need one more. Thank you, Aaron. Just step outside. I'll get you in a second. Okay. So for those of you left, the electric shocks are not painful. Anyway. Well, they may be painful. They will not cause any permanent damage. You probably make reference to, and some people don't use a term, but when you do research methodology, especially in terms of survey methodology, later on in therapeutic situations, I think this would matter. Certainly in memory, Elizabeth Loftus did a lot of work on this. And in thinking and problem solving, the way you ask questions, the framing of questions is often very significant. So here's just a little quick demonstration on that, I think. I'm not going to tell you too much more about it, but I would like some of you at least to try to record their answers. They're going to be asked 5 questions, okay? So if you don't all have to do it, but if some of you, we can rely on some of you to write subject number 1, you can write their name. I'll remind you of their name if you don't know. And then record their answers. It's not very scientific. We're not going to do stats. I'm just kind of demonstrating how you might do it, okay? I don't want to tell you too much more than that right now. Thank you, Emily. You're up. Emily, thanks a lot for volunteering, and thank you for waiting. Could you have a seat right in this chair? I think that's the one looking right at the screen.
Okay.
This will only take a moment. Thanks a lot for volunteering. In a moment, I just want to ask you for pretty quick answers to just a few questions that'll be on the screen, okay? So speak up because we're all teachers. That's bad. Okay. Because we're going to record your answers, but no harm will come to you, no grades will occur. Okay. And do this again. Here we go. Ready? Give me a quick estimate, please. What's 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8? Quickly, please. I don't know is the answer. Good. Okay, here's another one. Ready? Here we go. Is the cost of the average college textbook more or less than $70?
More.
More. Answer to B, 70. More. Good. Here we go. Why does that keep doing it? Give me an estimate, please. Why does it keep doing it? What is the cost of the average college textbook? $80. Good. Okay. Here's D. That's really annoying me. I'm sorry. When Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, was assassinated in January of 1948, was he older or younger than 9 years old? You're going to go with older. Good. Okay. And give me an estimate. How old was Gandhi when he was killed? 60. Good. Thank you. You can go back to your seat. We're going to talk to you in a few seconds, okay? Heavily burdened, folks. I'm trying to go back. I can't. Sorry about the screen thing. I'm not quite sure what's going on with it. Now what happened? There we go. I think everything's okay. We're going to do one more version of that, okay? Aaron, thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. Aaron, thanks a lot for volunteering. And thank you for waiting. Would you have a seat in that chair, please?
Okay.
Aaron, in a moment, if the screen cooperates with me, I'm going to show some questions on the screen. I'd like you to give a pretty quick answer estimate to these responses, okay? And I'll kind of hold you to that time, a little bit of a time constraint, okay? So subject number 2, Aaron, is going, and we're going to ask him 5 questions. Here we go. Aaron, would you give us a quick estimate, please? What's 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8?
342.
342, thank you. Here is B, Aaron. Is the cost of the average college textbook more or less than $70?
More of those jerks.
You can delete the last part of that. Here is C, ready. Give me an answer. What do you think is the cost of the average textbook?
$86.
$86, thank you. Very good. When Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, was assassinated in January of 1948, was he older or younger than 9 years old? He was older, you think you're 9. Okay, good. Give me an estimate, Aaron. How old was Gandhi when he was killed?
67.
Thank you very much. You are done, Aaron. You can go back to your seat. Okay. 2 more subjects. Hang in there. Julie. Julie, thank you so much for volunteering and for waiting. Could you sit right in that chair facing the screen? Julie, in a moment, I'm going to just ask you some quick questions. They're also going to be on the screen. And I'd like you to give a quick answer to these questions, okay? And I'm going to kind of hold you to a time constraint, all right? So let's see, Julie is subject number 3 or participant number 3. We don't want to use loaded terms. Here we go. Could you give me a quick estimate, please, Julie? What is 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? 700,364. Good. Here is Julie. Is the cost of the average college textbook more or less than $700? Less than $700. Here's C. Can you give me an estimate, please, Julie? What's the cost of the average college textbook?
I'd say $85.
$85. Good. Thank you. And D. When Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, was killed in January of 1948, was he older or younger than 140 years old? I'm sorry?
I'm going to go with younger
Younger than 140. Can you give me an estimate? How old was Gandhi when he was killed?
138.
138. Good. Thank you. Good. That is subject number 3. You are done. Thank you so much, Julie. Yes. And I have to go backwards again. Sorry. One more subject, and it's Beth, if you want to write her name in. Thank you, Beth. To be the last one. Sorry. Beth, I really appreciate your volunteering and for waiting alone. Could you have a seat in that chair, please? Thanks again for waiting. Beth, in a moment, I'm going to just flash 5 questions to you on the screen, and I'd like you to give a pretty quick answer to them, okay? And I'll hold you to that a little bit. Speak up just so people can record your responses, okay? Here we go. Subject, participant number 4, Beth. Can you give me a quick estimate, please, Beth? What is 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? 3,023. Okay, 3,023. Here is question B. Is the cost of the average college textbook more or less than $700? Less than $700. Here is question C. Give me an estimate, Beth. What's the cost of the average college textbook? $130. 1:30. Couple more, thank you. When Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, was assassinated in January of 1948, was he older or younger than 140 years old? Younger. And question E, can you give me an estimate? How old was Gandhi when he was killed? 82. Thank you. You are done. You can go back to your seat. Very good. Now, I have a couple of follow-up slides, but I wanted to find, where's the marker? Let's just do it quickly. Beth, you just went. Do you have any thoughts on what this is about?
Somehow I think there's a trick in there that I didn't catch.
Especially with the Gandhi one, people are like, okay.
That's where it was like,
Yeah.
we-
Aaron, what do you think? What do you think it's about?
Well, since I've been in here now for a few people going after this, how you ask the question influences our responses.
And go ahead. Thank you.
I was thinking framing of heuristic.
Yes, and how framing can influence our heuristic approaches to problem solving. So we have two conditions. So we'll just go, here's condition 1 and here's condition 2, and you can follow up this way. I have a slide I'll follow up with in a second. So who was our first participant? Emily. And when we asked her the question about what the first two people got, what's 1 times 2 times 3 times 4 times 5 times 6 times 7 times 8, and I think Emily's answer was, I don't know. Yes, good. And then the second pair of people we asked, what is 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? And maybe some of you have figured it out now.
The numbers were higher.
It's, yes, significantly, were they not?
Significant.
Yes, the answer is 40,320, by the way. But what did Aaron say? I forget. 324 or something. And then what was, didn't Julie say 725,000 or something? Now it's a very small sample, obviously, but sometimes you get an effect like that. You don't want to generalize from that sample, but. And then, so Aaron was our second one here. And then, of course, we had Julie here, and we had Beth. And the two conditions basically are, we're framing the questions differently. And the second one, the cost of the average college textbook. The first two people, we give an anchor beforehand. Is it more or less than $70? And the second two people, we give the anchor. Is it more or less than $700? I actually think maybe, that was actually replicating research. I might have chosen a different rate. And also, we're teachers. So I did think you kind of have a better sense of what a college textbook would cost, it seems to me. Did we have a significant difference just from this small sample in the responses to when we then asked in B, how much is the average textbook? One, we had the highest one we got was in condition 2, was it not? With the higher anchor. I don't know if it was significant. I don't really know the answer to this question, but I'm pretty sure it's more than 70 and less than 700. What were our results though? What was the lowest estimate we had? 80 and 105, yeah. And then the Gandhi example, I just kind of extracted from some work by Fritz Strock and Thomas Musweiler, and they did that very thing. They found in the first condition, when you give the Aaron's response to it was probably best, like the first two people are asked, was Gandhi older or younger than 9 years old when he was assassinated? And you want to wonder what the question is, but I think he's probably older. The second two people are asked, was he older or younger than 140 years old? Did we have an effect here, would you say, in this demo? It seems. Now, can we attribute anything to that? I don't know. It's 4 people. And we're not a representative sample probably of anyone. But they found that in the first condition, when you gave the 9-year-old anchor, average estimate was 50. In the other condition in which you gave the 140 anchor, the average age was 17 years higher. He was 70 when he died. So does this prove anything experimentally? Not yet, but it certainly can demonstrate the power of framing. How else do you use framing in your classes, in memory or in thought and language? How so?
Social stuff, when you're talking about something like even eyewitness testimony, or you're talking about phorensics, or anything, crime or, just in general, talk about social dynamics, group dynamics, we could talk about.
Do you do Loftus on eyewitness testimony in terms of the framing of questions too? Great stuff, and you can set that up as a demo as well. But then I think, again, I made a reference to treatment before. I imagine, just like in talking to any person, the way you ask a question has a big influence emotionally and so on. But this is a good example of this anchoring effect, I think. It's easy to set up, and it might be worth replicating. And there is a description, I have a description of it here, but what Deb is kindly handing out now, I would like you to just do quickly. Don't do it yet, let me set it up first. Another area in the individual variations domain is motivation and emotion. And there are a million ways to introduce motivation. We do a demo called Waste Basketball. Have you ever done Waste Basketball? Yeah. And I have a write-up of that. I'll explain it shortly. Maybe we can even do a round or two. But we also have developed a survey. And the survey is based on Guinness Book stuff. And then it's a way to introduce the entire unit on human motivation, different theories of human motivation. You read some of those things. Where did the sheet go? Where did the extras go? That's okay, but do you have... They're all gone. Okay. Do you mind? Yeah. So you read some of these. Kids like to read about them. Johnny Reitz established a record when he successfully held 3 full-sized hamburgers with rolls and condiments in his mouth. You can't eat it. I don't know how they demonstrate that you haven't, and I don't want to know. You read a few of these. The Guinness Book of Records is like a psych textbook, basically. So take a moment. You can talk to the people on either side of you or behind you, and actually do it first alone. And take the little survey. I'm basically making statements that I think you'll see introduce pretty much all the theories you might get out of human motivation, but the kids, of course, don't know that yet. And give it a little score. How much do you think the statement actually might explain why people do things like that? Go ahead, take that, and when you're done, you can start talking to someone next to you. Let me ask you one question. Of course, I wrote a little description at the end of some of the things that each item could allow you to float right before the unit starts. Often just using this and having a discussion about it, you can really do all the theories of human motivation, an overview anyway, easily in one class, which is worth it if you're stressed for time, as probably all of us feel we are. But if you have more time, you could ask questions like, I'm just interested just because I'm interested. Which one of those things I wrote there, I just chose them because they caught my attention, would you, Jessica, be least likely to do? This is one you would never do, one of those Guinness things. Yeah. You'd never do that one. This is the one you would never do no matter what.
I would say
The ice cube one. Yeah? I'd give you $1 million, you're not going to do that. Yeah. Which one do you think, I can see why someone tried that. Are there any people don't want to admit this now? A lot of guys are like, I do the hamburger one. I did it at lunch in middle school every day. Stephanie, is there one there you would never do it? The scorpion one. So why did Kanchana Ketku do that? Is that it? Yeah. Did you find if you did it individually and then shared with someone, did you have big disagreements on the explanations? No, you didn't. You were pretty much on target. Jill, which ones? Give me one where you gave it a score of 7 or above for explanatory value. I imagine many of you gave that item at least a 7. How many of you did give that item at least a 7? And even that can harken back to learning theory, Premack principle stuff and so on. Why is it like, I don't know about you, I feel like I don't want to be famous for these reasons. And the TV shows we had on, like, that would ask you, people want their 15 minutes of fame, but wow, how many of you would not wish to be famous for such things as used to be on those shows like Jackass and so on? So why does that motivate some people and not others? So it can really circle back very easily to what you may have previously done in learning theory. Is there any one of these explanations here you gave a score of 3 or below? You feel as if it has no explanatory value for these things?
You know, the money and fame, I gave that less because
Did
I
you?
thought that that was not the motivation. The motivation was something under the money and fame, like, somebody loved you,
Oh.
the things you could buy with money
Mhm.
or things you could get with money, not the money, because money by itself is nothing. So I was taking it to a different.
Good,
way.
good. Aaron?
I had adaptive evolutionary advantage, just in these situations,
You didn't think,
I don't think that was what was driving these people in particular.
is there an adaptive evolutionary advantage to standing out from a crowd as a potential mate?
Sense for a mate, for
Yeah.
a mate or something.
I don't know if stuffing hamburgers in your mouth is like, whoa, I want to go with that guy. Let's go back to the cave, but maybe. Mike?
I know this is the way psychology is moving, right? But the one that I get the most value to is, some people are just wired differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's advanced evolutionary psychology, the neuro and the bio, but I still feel like that some things could be more.
Which letter is that? I forget which one. The last one. What did you give HK? You don't like it either.
No, wait, H I gave a 9.
Oh, really? You think some people are just wired differently in ways that are relevant to this
Okay.
scenario?
And relating it to the Jackass thing, the desire for stimulation, we talked about this in class, the kids are totally motivated by that show. But the need for stimulation, for physical stimulation, for, the feeling, I don't really have so much of that, but when you talk with people, you can identify anecdotally different levels of the need for an adrenaline rush.
And in both these cases, just by discussing that question, you can get it. Biological, potential biological motivations of anything, also arousal theory. So the discussion does what you need it to do. Go ahead, Simone.
I didn't think that D applied at all.
Really?
All of a sudden,
You don't think this
I
is,
don't think any of those activities are things that are worthy of saying I'm reaching my full potential.
they aren't on self-actualized lists particularly, but Emily?
I mean, if you were Miles Anderson, you wouldn't think that there was no point in doing it, because he obviously pushed himself, and I'm sure at least one of these people tried once and failed. To get in the Guinness Book of World
Yeah.
Records.
I can
Because he wanted these people.
It depends also on, and again, if this topic came up in class, because I find this, maybe you have too, when you've done like Maslow's hierarchy, and one sort of short way a lot of people describe self-actualization is reaching your fullest potential. But I think too often that can be interpreted, at least anyway by our kids sometimes, as you're very successful at your job and you make a lot of money, which is not really what we're talking about there at all. So if this little debate came up in your class, you could say, well, let's clarify, what is it to reach your fullest potential? And while still foreshadowing Maslow's particular description of self-actualization, which is, in a sense, reaching full potential as a human, but that isn't enough to say that. Go ahead, B.
I thought A and B, even though it's instinct, okay. None of this stuff would exist without a social concept. I mean, stuff like that might exist in, like, initiation rituals and stuff like that, but wait a minute, instinct?
Yeah, I think it wouldn't even fit a ethologist's definition of an instinct to say stuffing hamburgers in your mouth is instinctive. But is it instinctive to seek attention or to seek standing out?
That's where I go for C.
Yeah. How many of you on letter A, the instinctual one, you're like, nah, it's got nothing to do with instincts? So you gave it 3 or below.
Well, I think, I don't think the desire to achieve has to be equal to desire to recognize,
Mhm.
to stand out. You know, are separate and equally
I'm asking now. Yeah. Peter?
What are achievement curiosities that set social construct?
Curiosity? Do you agree with Peter's premise there? Is curiosity a social construct? Go ahead, Mike.
I think curiosity to a degree has to, it has to be its own evolutionary psychology that says it's just in the human DNA rather than implied to run more and hate something that acquires there or poison is not good to eat. It has to be something, if you watch animals, I mean, they do have this, even if they're not raised by mommy and daddy's animal, they still have a sense of curiosity. As well as,
Achievement too?
look to please,
can drive
if
the
they go,
community
look to please.
taken off track by other needs that might be.
Can I interject at that point, partly because I'm watching the clock? You mentioned achievement drive, and we're talking about reaching fullest potential. The waste basketball demo, which I'll just talk through because we don't have enough time to do it, but I'll just explain it quickly and have it right up. We usually open the unit doing it because it's a demo and has volunteers and kids that will engage people, but also because it's really replicating David McClellan's decades-old work in achievement motivation. He used, I think, a ring toss like at a carnival. But one way to replicate that is, we just call it waste basketball, where you ask for volunteers to leave the room, come back in one at a time. And we have a little system, Mike and I, where we go by the tiles on the floor, but the basic setup is this: put a wastebasket here, and give them 3 pieces of paper. It is a little waste of paper, crumpled up. And the idea is to throw the pieces of paper into the wastebasket, one at a time. No mention of points, no mention of winning or losing. Kids are often interested in that, but I say don't say it in the little pregame patter, sort of. They can shoot from one of 3 spots. If the trash can is here, you can shoot from here. For every point you get from here, you get 1 point. Or you can shoot from here. It's a little further back. For every one you get from here, you get 2 points. Or you can shoot from, I've given myself an obstacle course. You can shoot from here. For every one you get from here, you get 3 points. Once you choose a line, you have to stay there for all 3 tosses. Take a moment to reflect and then fire away. The kid chooses a line. We don't even record the amount on, we say nothing about winning, losing, and so on. Of course, especially in America, maybe you're going to be aware of that, but you don't say anything about it. They shoot, it's over fast, they go back to their seat, we'll check with you later. Next kid comes in, we give them the same choice. 4 kids, maybe 3 kids, it depends on how much time you have. You want to do at least a couple. Then when it's done, what is this studying anyway? And often they'll mention things, they don't know the term social facilitation or social inhibition, but they'll get at that idea. And if they do, great, you can float the idea of how a crowd might affect you. You get self-handicapping a lot. You can float that idea because almost always there's someone, I know me. Well, let me ask you, which line would you choose? 2. That's funny. Which line would you choose? You can shoot from here. You get 1 point apiece. You can shoot from this middle line. You get 2. Back line, 3 points. You choose the second line. Anyone think they would choose the front line? Yeah. Why? Okay.
I don't think I could get it from.
Yeah. Is it about have you played waste basketball before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Kids do say that. They'll come and say, I'm not good at this. You're like, really? Have we done this before? But they will self-handicap right up. And I'm quite sure, I know I'm going too fast here. One of the reasons I like this demo is, nobody ever did demos when I was in school, but I'm 90% sure I would have chosen the back line. But not for the reasons that people often think. Like often when the kids are in the hallway, you'll ask, so, Bob's out in the hallway. What line is he going to choose? Like, he's going to choose the back line. Why? Because he's a loud, obnoxious jock, and he thinks he's better than everyone, and so on. Actually, well, I don't think I was like that in high school myself, but I did play sports. Hard to believe now, but I did. And I would have chosen the back line, and I don't know what they would have predicted, but not for that reason, one. No. It's self-handicapping. You choose the back line, you can't fail. And then that really, and I rarely, Mike and I have done this a lot, I started doing this demo 1992 maybe. I've never had a female choose the back line. I'd say I may have had 5% of males choose the back line. I'm 90% sure I would have chosen the back line, but not because of desire for achievement or confidence, but fear of failure. From the back line, I could not have failed. Because if you think you're an athlete, and you come in and you shoot second line, and you're like free throw shooter, you're a good free throw shooter, and then you missed, you're like, geez, he's not that good, is he? You know? But if you go to the back line, by the way, we always pick a line that's, you can't make it really. Sometimes you can bank one in from a desk or something, but you can't really make it. It's pretty obvious that you can't make it, the third line. We have tiles, I wrote the tiles in there. This is a 3 tile on the floor one, this is a 9 tile one, that's an 18 tile one if you want to use tiles, just from trial and error. But it really, I think, almost exactly replicates McClellan's work on a ring toss. And then we use 2 stories as a follow-up to that after we're done, talking about achievement motivation. Some of you may know about them. They used to be in textbooks. The story of Kathy Ormsby and the story of Terry Fox. Both, I'll tell it fast. So after the demo, you floated some of these ideas. There's more to it, but we wrote about it there. Now, let me tell you a quick story. 1986, a young woman named Kathy Ormsby, she's a junior at North Carolina State University. She was on the track team, cross-country team. She was the valedictorian of her high school class. And she set North Carolina state records in the 800 meters to they had the 1600 meters, and the metric equivalents of the half mile, the mile, and the 2 mile. She then goes to college her freshman year on an academic scholarship, but she's also competing. And in November of her freshman year, she's been in school for 2 months, she places in the NCAA cross-country championship. Doing great. Sophomore year, she's chosen as a captain of the team. She's only a sophomore. Her junior year in the spring, she sets a collegiate record in the 10,000 meters, which is 25 laps of the track if you see a regular track, 6.2 miles. She's the favorite to win the NCAA track championships in May. Her best time is like fully a minute ahead of her next competitor. She gets to the race, qualifies fine. The final happens, and those of you who know swimming or track especially, people are competing and the coach is yelling splits and so on. And she was doing fine. She's in the lead pack, but she wasn't blowing everyone out. She was in the lead pack, coach is yelling down to her, giving her splits. She comes around and says, okay, that was a 70, you gotta pick it up, and so on. But she's fine, she's in the lead pack. She's gone, I think, 6,400 meters or so on. I think she had 8 laps to go. And she comes around, and he yells her splits, and she's still right in the front pack. I've read different accounts of where actually she was in the race, but mostly the one I'm going to buy is she was third in this pack of 4, and then everyone else went third. She comes around, he yells out the split. She continues, but instead of going out, she runs out of the stadium. Now, I coached track for a long time and ran track, and maybe some of you, I've seen that before. I've seen people just walk off or run off. I've seen people run off and go in the bathroom and you go in and they're crying and so on. She ran out of the stadium. Coach is like, what? And runs down, tries to find her. Can't they page her on the public address? Kathy Ormsby, please report to the press box. No response. She ran out of the stadium, ran across a softball diamond that was outside the stadium, got to a 7-foot fence, climbed fence, ran another 100 meters or so to a bridge and jumped off the bridge. Broke her back, punctured her lung, paralyzed from the waist down. She's still paralyzed. Why did she do that? And kids often we have so relevant. Too much pressure. Well, quit track. Why did you jump off a bridge? And often it really stimulates discussion among the kids too, who feel like they'll even say, you know, I don't like wrestling anymore. Wrestling's a terrible sport, and I don't like, but I'm the captain, I can't quit now. Why would she do that? And go ahead.
I wonder if she found something happening in a way that she's not.
Actually, the thing that I found striking is at the time she did it, you can still, even if you just Google this, you'd see some interviews with her right after. To her great credit, I think she actually works with handicapped people now, people who have been injured and through injury and accident are paralyzed and so on. But she's a valedictorian of her high school class. It's a bright kid. They said, what will you do? She said, I don't know. And she did kind of mention a sort of dissociation. Like it was like I was watching myself do it. The Terry Fox story, I'll tell a quick version because we're low on time, is about the guy that you've probably heard of who ran across Canada. Wanted to average a marathon a day. Mike and Mike McLean both run long distance. A marathon a day. He's going to run across Canada as like a fundraiser. His friends are like, you can't run a marathon a day across Canada. He's like, I'm going to run a marathon across Canada. So he starts out. And he has a little entourage that like follows him, and they go ahead to the hotel and they set up camp, and he's going to meet him there and so on. And he's not doing that well. He has some little injury problems and stuff like that. After a little while, he's only gone like 8 miles a day. They have like a summit meeting and say, okay, you're not going to make it 8 miles. He says, no, I want to keep going. I want to keep trying. It's like 8 miles a day. You said marathon a day. You're not going to make it because he had a goal to get there at a certain time. He's running from the East Coast to British Columbia. Nova Scotia, I forget the places now, I'm doing it off the top of my head. Anyway, he then says, no, I don't want to quit. Keeps going. He doesn't quite make his goal, but he ends up running over 3,000 miles across Canada, picks it up, averages over 20 miles a day, which is even more impressive when you learn that Terry Fox only had one leg. He ran across Canada on one leg, mostly to raise money for cancer research. And when you reveal that to kids, like, yeah, Terry, isn't that impressive? Kids can't believe it. We're like, yeah, only had one leg. And if you've seen, again, you could probably YouTube him and so on. When you see his running stride, you'd think he has a very primitive prosthetic, what we would think of as a very primitive prosthetic. His running style, very concussive on his strong side. You'd think his hip would be a mess. What would ever motivate him to even think that he could run across Canada averaging a marathon a day? And after you've done the demo on waste basketball and then told the Kathy Ormsby story set off against the Fox story, you really have a good framework for talking about achievement motivation versus fear of failure, finding that potential balance between fear of often asking kids in school, like seniors, motivation issues a lot, senioritis alleged, which is self-fulfilling mostly because we talk about it so much. But you can ask them, how many of you are motivated now more by the desire not to get bad grades than to get good grades? And they'll even say, I'm not going to stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning like I did for the bio project, pinning insects to a board and so on. I'm not going to do that, but I don't want to get a D. Now, I don't need to achieve, but I don't want to fail. And that by itself can get you into that sort of discussion. Let's do one other quick demo, Sarah, because I'm watching the clock. I think it's kind of fun, but also I think it really leads into stuff that you almost always do in the emotion part of that unit, the motivation and emotion part. Many of you, if you haven't already done it, you've certainly thought about it. On Paul Ekman, you can do that as a demonstration. But I just always wanted to do this because I love babies, and it was fun to set up. And I want you to try it, so could you please, sorry, we're a little low on time. Actually, can you help me get, I'm sorry, okay. I'm going to give you a little score sheet, okay? And you'll see, it's self-explanatory. And you don't need to do this, of course, if you don't feel like it.
I'm self-handicap.
So, here we go. Harder to do than it might sound. I'm going to show you some pictures of babies. They're not all babies, but close. I have a very broad definition of baby. And I would like you to try to keep yourself to one word. Write what emotion the baby's face is expressing. Okay? Do the best you can. Here we go. So here we go. Here is baby number 1. Try to keep yourself, with your kids, you have to say, okay, try not to blurt. Typically, we often say this when we're doing shticks, like, we usually do this one-on-one. If we were actually doing this experimentally, and so we'd be doing it one-on-one, we wouldn't have a social effect. But there's 30 of you, try to control yourself, and most of the time they'll respond to that. Sometimes you get a blurter who will blurt no matter what, but what are you going to do? And you can't help but have reactions, but try to control your reactions. Simply try to keep yourself to one word if you can. Here we go. We'll talk about some of the limitations of this, which are part of the demo, in a moment. Just do the best you can. Here we go. Baby number 1. What emotion? Here is baby number 2. I'm going fast intentionally. Here's baby number 2. Here is baby number 3. Baby number 4. I shouldn't comment, but I find that a hard one. Yeah, anyway, here's baby number 5. You're controlling yourself very well. Kids don't do that well. Here's baby number 6. Try to keep yourself to one word. Baby number 7. He's the lower kid here. Yeah, that's fine. Here's 8. Baby 8. Not really a baby, but I couldn't resist. Here's baby 9. Baby number 10. I could have spent a week going through Google image baby faces to do this, yeah. I just had to stop myself. Here's baby 11. Ready? And baby 12. We'll check in with you in a second. Here's baby 12. Now, one more little task, something like you might have already done. You can see there's 2 more items on the half sheet. The first one, I ask you to look at this first array. You'll recognize it. And write the 2 numbers of write the numbers of the 2 photos you think these people, the 30 people in this room, would most agree on. Also write the 2 you think we would be least likely to agree on. Take your shot. Don't talk about it yet. Here we go. I know it's kind of hard to see. It's numbered from 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12. Yes, please write. I think it says it on the half sheet. Write the 2 you think, if we did it statistically, we would get the biggest agreement. The 2 where you think we would disagree. On that one. Now, again, we could take a lot of time on this, and there's a lot of different ways to debrief it, and many of you've shown repeatedly in the last couple of days how good you are at stuff like that. Let's just, about different ways you could check it out. Let's just, for fun though, see if we had much agreement. First, would you say we have agreement on the baby faces? Because a big factor, and kids especially, this is true, is vocabulary. And that's a good thing to talk about, not just methodologically, but also intellectually, like, is this a matter of identifying emotions, or is it a matter of thinking of the words to describe an emotion, which is a different task? So, what generally would we get here? Happy enough? What if someone said happy and someone else said content? Would you consider those a match? See, we'd have to kind of operationalize that. So you can, even though it has flaws, it's only a demo, and you can use the potential flaws to talk about how you could clean that up. Yeah. Right. And then you ask the kids, what if I gave you a list? Circle the one. But does that change the task? And how has it changed the task? So you're really encouraging them to think about how they would set this up. And maybe better. And often they will say, you should have done this. And you're like, yeah, I should have. I'll give you my check this week. Here's 2. Bored? Is there anger in there too, or no? No? I don't know how they got that. What's that? Is there curiosity there? I'm curious about what's making me so mad. What's that? I don't know. There's a little negative to me, though. That's a little negative, isn't it? How many would say that is more of a negative than a positive emotion? I don't know. Is that surprise or fear? I don't know. Skeptical? Yeah. Anyone just say sad? Yeah. Is happy good enough for that, or does it need to be more? Like, yeah. Or he's emptying. Yeah. Or better, post-empty. That's what it is. Get a lot of devil children with that one. Yeah. Is that? I'm sorry. Sorry, I can't go back. There we go. Is that surprise? Their fear too? No? Yeah. I don't know how you get the kid to look like that. What's that? Now I'm sure you tell me, after doing this it's kind of fun and kids laugh, but what would you ask about this afterwards that can kind of be floating the things you want to be floating?
I like to talk about fear and how, emotions, and how you have some emotions that are more convoluted because they're a combination of emotions. And then, you know what I mean? So some are really difficult because they're not just, like you said, is there some fear in that? Is there some, they're combined. They're not single. They're not that simple. They're simple and it's complex.
What other questions might you ask after this array?
Well, what's our definition for like emotion? Because the things that people feel like saying like curious or something like that, they seem to think that that's an emotion, but yet
Yes.
basic emotions like
Right, and Ekman talked about the big ones, whatever that means. Also, kind of a philosophical question, or maybe not, the difference between emotions and feelings. They're not the same, really. So, and also, well, what else would you ask after that, so you could get something out of it?
how do humans perceive emotion?
Yeah, and of course, you're leading to the idea. So, do you just get this? Do you know even, like, what makes that surprise and not fear? And the kids are good at sometimes saying, there's something about the eyes or something about the mouth, and that can really lead you into this. So let's take one quickly, Simone. Is there one here you feel like we definitely agree? Would we agree? Yeah. Good. Beth, can you give me one you feel like if we did it systematically, it'd be the one we'd probably have the most variation on? How many have 12 in that category there? What is that, Stephanie? What is 12? I think 12 in his answer key is just surprise. Yeah. Except he was testing only was it 7 or 8? I think it was 7, like the big one. And sometimes you can ask kids, I used to have them in my head, but I don't now. What would be the big ones? Not skeptical, but certainly happy, sad, fearful, disgusted, surprise. I think there was 7, but I forget now. Yeah. And then one other thing you can get out of this is, of course, what you all probably teach about Ekman, but it also gives you a chance to ask some questions that will deepen that before you reach the conclusion. Do people who are born blind make the same facial expressions? You all teach psychology, so you know the answer to this question. But kids often wonder, at least at first, hesitate, at least before answering. To what extent are there differences in display rules? And you can just float toward the concept of display rules by describing it first. Are there sex differences and cross-cultural differences? There's actually some research, 2008, I think, Matsumoto and others, that found somewhat contradictory what I used to always just say about, have you seen the video in the Ekman video, the old black and white thing with the Japanese college student and the, how many of you have seen that? Pam, can you describe it quickly?
I thought it was photographs.
There was, Mike, you mind saying it?
I think they're comparing student in Tokyo versus
Yeah.
a Berkeley student watching surgeries like on a video alone, so the Japanese students watching alone, the Berkeley students watching alone, and then they had some authority figure, like a doctor, come in and sit next to them while the video is still going on, and then they just are watching does their expression, does their display of emotions actually change between the time they're alone versus whether they're
And what's your prediction? Yes. That when they're alone, they show the same facial expressions. But when they're being monitored, especially by someone who appears to be an authority figure, the video almost says it's like Japanese students more likely to mask their emotions, even covering it with a smile is the example they use. American students make the same faces. Kind of a display rule example. Matsumoto and others found display rules aren't, there's a lot of commonality cross-culturally, but we can all think of counterexamples to that too. So that's kind of a rich area for talking about it. Also, sex differences, because you're going to do gender later if you haven't already in class, and you can talk about basically the idea of expressing emotion and holding in emotion and so on, Peter.
I think you'd also have to break down, show or display of emotions, facial expressions, body language.
Yes.
Which could be.
And we're focusing only on faces here, but goodness, we can go in a million other directions.
Also,
Yes.
the cross-cultural, a study, and I can't think of the name of it, where Asians look at the eyes first, and Americans look at the hair and the holistic. So they took the subjects where their eyes hit first in the picture. Really interesting.
So many, there's even subtle examples, and I think it is a Japanese versus a Western culture's idea that if you ask someone to think about something, especially a younger Japanese person will look down. If you think about that and they'll look down while they're thinking, a Westerner is more likely to look, let me think about that. I may have that wrong, but I think I have it right.
I just want to say, and I have to find it when I go home, right before I came here, on the news, there was a mention of how researchers have proven this whole theory about Ekman's facial expression and how there's been, so many people are lying and stuff. It's not accurate.
We do a lying.
Look it up.
We do a lying demo, I just call it the lying demo, based on Ekman's book on lying. He wrote a book on lying. And he did it with, no, I'm sorry, I know the clock's running, but he did it with nurses. He thought, his sense was, nurses had to be good at dissembling anyway. A nurse can't come in and go, well, let's just look at your x-ray. Oh, you're going to be fine, Mr. Johnson. You have to be able to cover. So he had nurses watch a video of bad stuff. But they have to do, and they're describing the video to us who cannot see the video. So you're watching, one of them, if I remember right, I'm kind of winging this off the top of my head, was of a school bus accident, which we all probably cringe at that, and kids had been burned, children, burn victims being brought into an emergency room. So you're watching that. But you're instructed sometimes to describe accurately. I'm describing it to Cindy. She can't see the video. Oh my gosh, this poor girl is coming in. But in other conditions, the nurses were asked to completely lie about what they were watching. Can the person in Cindy's position detect when the nurse is lying or telling the truth? And so many things online and so on that will say, But even the eye contact one, that always drives me crazy because there's a zillion reasons why people don't make eye contact that have nothing to do with them lying, including them thinking that you think they're lying. So that's not a real reliable predictor, despite what the Mentalist might say or shows like that. And Ekman found, he also broke it down by occupation, which was the best part, because, and when we do the lying demo, I'll show you how we do, tell you how we do in a second, we also built in a confidence rate. When you're done, Carrie has just told you some stories. In some cases, she might have been lying. In other cases, she was telling the truth. Every time she's done, you write lie or truth on your little score sheet. When you're done, write a confidence rating, 0 to 10. 0 is, I have no idea. 10 is, I know when she is lying through her teeth. And then we look at the correlations. We don't calculate them, but you can eyeball the correlation between performance and confidence. And Ekman did something similar by profession. And if I remember right again, I'm kind of winging it here. I think he looked at 4 professions in particular where people typically think they're good at lie detection. Name those professions. Go. Cops. What else? Teachers was another one. Lawyers was the third. And the fourth was secret agents, basically, like Secret Service agents. Yeah. I think those are the 4. And he found Secret Service agents were marginally better than chance. Teachers, and we all know this, but it bothers me actually when your teacher's like, I could tell the kid was lying, be like, no, you couldn't. You just think you could. And that's even worse, that you think you can and you're wrong. So, and when you actually study it, and the lying demo, I just made these arrays where I put pictures. So 3 volunteers, it's fun. You ask the kids if they want to do it. And they're like, who thinks they're a good liar? And they're like, oh, Lee's a great liar, boy. Remember the time you told me? And so you have them leave the room. They come back in one at a time. They look at pictures one after another. And they're instructed to tell a story. But I just put a Post-it note on it that either says lie or truth. If it says truth, you describe what you're saying. If it says lie, you tell a complete lie about what you're saying. When you're done, you write on your little score sheet whether you think it was a lie or truth. Then you give a confidence rating. And then to build in another methodological component, the third kid doesn't know this, but when they come in, the first 2 kids have 2 different sets of pictures, and the third kid comes in and there are no pictures. Nobody knows that. They don't know it beforehand, but I just have an empty folder with 6 pieces of paper that say on it, I know there's no picture, lie anyway. The next one, I know it's hard, just keep trying. The next one, you're almost home, tell another lie, and so on. So they have nothing to go from, because then you can get at the idea of how different it is to the economy with the truth idea. I told you I was with Kay and Simone last night. I just didn't mention the cops. It's very easy to tell the essence of the story and leave some things out. Starting from scratch is very different. Can they detect that third condition? They do better in the third condition. No. And they know very quickly all the things that they thought they could rely on with this kid that they've known since first grade. No. Now that's only a demo, and I wouldn't stack up that as research evidence, but I think it does, at least it reflects what Ekman found in his book. So that's pretty easy to replicate, and we can send that to you too. One more thing, sorry, I know we're over time. We talked before about evolutionary psych and so on. You can spiral back. You're doing your emotion part, spiral back to what you did on evolutionary psych and sociobiology in the first part of the unit by asking, is this an adaptive thing? That we're at least good, we're not good at lie detection, although we try to be, but are we good at facial interpretations of basic emotions because you have to be? If you were back in pre-linguistic times and you're like, is he happy or threatening? Oh, arrow in the face, and you're like dead, and you don't, you have to be able to know, basically. And if you don't know, then you're going to have a problem. And the people who didn't detect that well didn't pass on their, I'm not good at detecting happy versus threatening gene, and that's kind of evolved out. And you can also foreshadow, I think, when you do the facial stuff, facial feedback hypothesis is also a great link to what you're going to do later, James Longa theory, William James and Carl Longa, the idea that the physiological comes first and then the experience of the emotion. Facial feedback hypothesis, do you know that? Can anyone help us with it quickly? I know we're low on time. Jill, please.
Facial feedback is when if you force yourself to smile, you will eventually be happier. your feeling become more in accordance with the expression on your face.
And one of the most examples of that was they had people watch video or something, and they watch it in like a controlled condition and then report how happy they feel while they're watching it. And another, they're asked to watch the video while they have the pen in their mouth, and they're asked to hold it like this, compelling the face to sort of make a smile, and then there's a statistically significant difference between their ratings of the happiness of their happiness while watching the video. You say that kids don't buy it at all. I'm skeptical too, but it can foreshadow James Longa. And then one more thing, last night at the sharing session, we were talking about racism. And when you do later in social psychology, the social cultural domain, if you do racism or you do stereotyping and you do that sort of thing, we talked about out-group homogeneity bias. There was research done in 2002, Elfenbein et al., I'll write it on the board, where they found that people are better at detecting the facial expressions of people who are in their cultural group. And that isn't prejudice necessarily, it's out-group homogeneity bias or the other race of, is it other race effect? I always go out-group homogeneity bias. That people who belong to groups to which you do not belong appear more homogeneous than they really are. The idea that all blacks look alike, ugly racism said in that tone. But actually people are not good. Remember last night I mentioned, those of you who were there, can you pick your dog out of a lineup of 5 labs? And most kids will be like, yeah, I can tell. And you can ask them why, and they don't really know why, but they can. You can't, not because you don't like them, but because you haven't had the exposure to them. So you can float a lot of stuff from doing what appears to be just, oh, baby faces demo. And I'm sorry we went so late. So, thank you. There's a bunch of handouts there.